What are we talking about? New inventory?
New inventory we
there you
are.
go.
1956 Buick Roadster Riviera 4-door hardtop. You seen this car? It's obviously not. Spruce, because your delay and hesitation in responding.
It's just 1,100 cars. It's really hard to remember exactly if I've seen it or not. I'm sure I've seen a green Buick.
Well, here's the problem.
Oh, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
You don't know if you've seen something because you may have seen it here, you may have seen it there, you may have seen it at the car show, you may have seen it. It's like, who knows where you saw it? I know I've seen it.
I know exactly which car you're talking about.
This car is spectacular.
It is.
It is a near flawless restoration.
Really?
Power windows and seats, AACA National Senior, the Wonder Bar radio, Fireball 322 cubic inch V8, and the Dynaflow automatic transmission. Spruce green metallic and foam green over foam green and just regular green. It doesn't say regular green. It just says green.
And the paint is really nice on this car.
I mean,
spectacular.
Peter writes, there are restorations and then there are restorations.
Done. Give me an echo.
Yeah. Oh, do I have
No, he has a, you have it on
we could do echo, but
let's don't.
number 16 on there.
This thing is, I mean, I love Peter says, with nary a flaw to be found. Nary, there's a good word for you. I like nary.
It is.
This thing is, first of all, it's unusual for a 4-door car to have this level of restoration done to it because in the pecking order, the 4-door is the least valuable in body styles, if you will. Now, there's two versions of a 4-door, and people don't understand this, just like there's two versions of a 2-door. There's a 4-door sedan and a 4-door hardtop. Hardtop has no bar in between the front and rear window. So when you open the front and rear windows on both sides of the car, it's like...
What is that, B-pillar? No B-pillar?
B-pillar.
Post?
right,
correct.
wide open. Yep.
Post.
Then you've got a 2-door coupe
Yep.
and a 2-door sedan because it has, again, the B-pillar
Post.
there.
Yep.
And if it doesn't have that, then it's an open. And I got in an argument with guys all the time. We've talked about this. But anyway.
Did they make a 2-door Roadmaster in the mid-50s, though? I'm not sure.
Probably did. I think they
One
did.
big, huge door?
Yeah. A door that weighed 9. Well,
They are huge.
How about the second-gen Camaros and Firebirds?
Yeah.
Those doors were ridiculously heavy. I mean, they were always sagging. You always had to, when you closed the door in one of those, generally you had to lift up and then push the door closed because otherwise, if you tried to just close it was missing the striker by about a mile.
That's right.
And so, but this car, I mean, the level of restoration on this car, it was a labor of love. Somebody did it because that was the car that they remembered or they had or grandpa had or whatever it was. Somebody didn't do it to make a profit. Like you might do an SS 396 Chevelle and you might find one in barn find condition and you restore it and you take it to, one of the big auction houses or you bring it here and you get $180,000 for it and wow, you made a home run. That wasn't what this was. This is a guy who spent whatever it took to make this the best 56 Buick Roadster Riviera. And I would argue that it's probably one of the finest on the planet, if not the finest on the planet. Now, you might find a 2-door hardtop that would be better or a convertible that would be better, or I say better, or as in equal condition. But this thing is...
And I've always liked the 56 because the tail light was more refined than the 55. It had the 55 had that rounded piece on the tail light. This is a nice, smooth, vertical tail light.
Another 50s car that we've just recently gotten in, but only a 1-year only body style, is the 1958 Chevrolet Impala hardtop. And think about this. Chevrolet went from the 57 Chevy to the 58 Chevy and completely different body style, and then 59 completely new body style.
Right.
1 year. How did they justify the tooling and the cost? And I mean, that was something they just didn't do back then. And these 58, I think the 58 Impala is arguably one of the coolest 50s car there are. They're just really cool looking. They're called the Sport Coupe and the 2-door hardtop.
Beautiful grille.
Yeah, this is onyx black over black and turquoise, the AACA Thomas McKean Tour Award. Now, this has got a 350 V8 in it. It's got a replacement motor. The original motor, something happened to it. And it's got vintage air, which hard to fault people for putting vintage air in a black 2-door hardtop car. It might get a little warm in there.
It might.
It mightn't, as they like to
That's
say
right.
in the South.
That's right.
Turbo hydromatic 350. And man, but it was a huge success, which lends you to wonder why they changed it. It must have been... There was more to the story. We should find out the story of the 58 Impala and really why they did it.
And question for the experts, and I'm going to even include Randy in the control room here.
Yes.
Why are there not a lot of 58 anythings?
Well, that's a good question.
Two reasons I've heard.
Okay, I'm listening.
Recession year and a very severe winter over much of the country.
Could have very well
They rotted out. Not a lot were sold, and what they had rotted out.
Right. Well, because people don't or forget that you can see rust on a brand new car's underside or even the top side because these cars, once they were built at the factory, they didn't have room to park them indoors. They didn't have the classic auto mall.
People didn't have big garages like that.
Well, I'm saying before they were even sold, they went outside, and they might sit outside for 6 months or a year. And back in the build quality of the late 50s, early 60s, that was almost a death knell for those things.
And rust never sleeps.
Yeah, and rust never sleeps, as Neil Young said. Other 50s car we just got in, the 55 Chrysler C300 hardtop. Black over beige, rebuilt 300 horsepower, 331 cubic inch Hemi. This car was the hot rod of the day. It was the fastest car of the day. They only made like 725. They had dual quad. They were a Hemi power. Dual quad, if those of you don't, I'm sure most of our listeners know what a dual quad is. If you don't, it's 2 4-barrel carburetors on one intake manifold,
right?
Or a special intake manifold that has room for both. Now that was that important?
Sorry about that.
2 angels got their wings.
Clang, 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 said the trolley. Anyway, so back in the day, these things, it had 165 mile an hour speed record. Not this particular car. I mean, it may have been this particular car. But the writer said about it, a hard-boiled, magnificent piece of semi-competition transportation built for the real automotive connoisseur. That was the description of the C300. And this thing is really, and it's just black and cool, and there's a large paper trail that shows the history of the car throughout its life and everything.
Does it have black wheels? Is this
it does.
Oh,
it does,
this car is tough.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's just
very
mean.
Now I know which one you're talking about.
See, it just takes a little spark to get that little brain going. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. I know I can. I know I can. Also, another new inventory item, the 1937 Cord Westchester, Tampa blue metallic over tan. And it looks like an original Cord, except it's got some liberties taken, and it's got a 350 cubic inch crate V8, which is unusual. Turbo hydromatic 350 on it, heat and air, and a Mustang 2 front end. And this thing is kind of a homologation, if you will, of the Cord and the Graham. So the Cord was built in the 30s, and then the body and tooling was bought by Graham. And they created the Graham Hollywood, and it had the same kind of coffin nose front end as the Cord. Anyway, this is kind of a mixture of those two, and it's a beautiful car, and that Tampa color is just spectacular. So if you get a chance, all these cars on our website, unless they've sold in the last few minutes. Right. They hadn't sold as of this morning, but they could have sold since we've been on the air. Because they don't alert me of any new sales until after the show. I don't want to be distracted from my loyal listeners.
Right.
Right.
We have a little cha-ching sound there.
I could do that.
In case you get sales.
Well, if I have to look for it, it kind of loses.
You got to memorize it.
I know, but I haven't memorized it.
Bling, cha-ching.
Money. Anyway, other inventory in the 1959 Mercedes-Benz Unimog 411. This is sap green over black. That is the name. Expertly restored, 6-speed manual tranny. It's basically go anywhere. I think a solid standing vertical brick wall they would climb right up. It's
unbelievable.
This is so cool. I mean, and the guy really spent a lot of time researching it, doing it right, doing all the things that you would do to make. It's a 1.9 liter inline 4 diesel, but I mean, it's got a boatload of torque, and it'll just climb up just about anything. And then lots of ground clearance. It's just got checks all the right boxes.
Very cool car
for something like this, and it is, got lots and lots of things, and it's got they did a drivetrain restoration on it, and of course, sometimes that's not as easy as it sounds. Rebuilding a motor or machine shopping a motor or whatever you do. Sometimes that's a lot of work and a lot of money, and especially in this day and age, it's like chroming a bumper. It doesn't come cheap.
That's right.
How about the last of our new inventory for this week? Not the last of, because if we had to go through all of them, we'd be here for 67 years. And 3 days. 1969 Pontiac Firebird convertible. This thing is yaller.
It is yaller. I did a yellow series of yellow cars, and that was in there. Bright yellow cars.
It is bright yellow. Sure. 400 cubic inch V8, turbo hydromatic 400, wheelwood brakes, vintage air, which I like. Listen, I don't call them much harm and foul on that. I like that people do that. And this has got suspension and chassis upgrades anyway.
Yep.
And they only made 11,649 convertible Firebirds in 1969, which sounds like a lot.
It's not.
But back in the day, that wasn't a whole lot of cars.
That's right.
And you figure between attrition and wildfires and hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and crazy kids and junkyards and cash for clunkers. Oh, there's one that we haven't talked about. You know, it's amazing that any of these things are still around, especially, you know, with and then the build quality wasn't as great as it is today. The rust proofing and all that wasn't, you know, they try to sell you that, but I'm not quite sure if it really meant anything.
No, I don't think it. And before we leave new inventory, and either it's new,
we left it a long time ago.
Either it's new or it got moved. Mail truck.
Oh, the mail truck.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one. I'll make sure to put that on the list next week.
It's a blown mail truck.
Yeah. in no uncertain terms.
It's funny. It says mail delivery or something on it. You know, they can't have the postal logo on it.
Sure.
But it should be express mail delivery with that engine sticking out of the top.
It's crazy.
And
it's
reasonable.
I mean, to duplicate it, you would spend a lot more money. Right. Of course, I don't know how many people, you know, you talk about a niche thing. I mean, that's something that somebody either worked for the post office and thought it was cool to have, or you know, there's some connection to it that makes it happen. But you don't have that many people that might have that connection to something like that. Right. And it's not downplaying the car as much as it's just the fact that there's just not that. You know,
that's right.
Fighting the butt for that seat.
Yeah, I mean, we have cars like that we really just don't. You know, we can't, it's hard to find the right person for that particular car, whether it's that one or other stuff that we have. That Ferrari that we have, that it very easily, the Austin Healey Ferrari chassis that we just sold, that very easily, it's as easily as it was popular. It could have been one of those things that people were like, I don't really know, you know, maybe that's not, you know, I can't go to a vintage race with it. I can't maybe go to the Ferrari meet with it because they're not.
Well, it was like the Super Light that sat here for a while. I thought for sure that would sell right away. But it sat for a while.
Yeah, it was so cool. The Cheetah that we had. How about the Cheetah that we never ended up selling? Unfortunately, it was just one of those things. So.
Yep.
You've been listening to the Classic Auto Mall podcast with your host, Stewart Howden.